Hey everyone, it's Leandra at the new Vocations Racehorse Adoption Program's Kentucky facility, and today for our Trainer Tip Tuesday, we're going to talk about detecting early lamenesses and one of the ways that you can troubleshoot what's going on with your horse. So obviously lameness is a big topic to address, so we're going to really hone in on one part of it. If you have decided that it is a physical lameness that you're seeing as opposed to a behavioral issue that maybe you're observing and it's affecting your performance, then that is a totally different topic, a separate category. We're not going to touch it for now. So say that you've just honed in on this is a physical lameness, what's going on with my horse? Well, one of the easy things that you can do basically anywhere is to jog your horse in a straight line on different hardnesses of surface. So for us, we have the ability to jog horses in our flat and hard aisleway of our barns. So that we use oftentimes as a hard surface. Also out here, we have a gravel surface. So if you have a horse who's just having a foot issue maybe, then they will look very dramatic on the hard gravel surface. It's sort of shifting and has rocks of different sizes. And then we have the grass or the indoor or the outdoor arenas that we can use as soft surfaces. So it's important to distinguish this because even say in some situations we'll have a horse who is jogged in front of the vet and they can look pretty sound in a straightaway on a hard surface in our barn, but then we might go to ride them in the indoor where it's softer, or we work them on the lunge line and they don't look the same. So it's important to distinguish. Now, with harder surfaces, oftentimes bony issues can be accentuated. So you might see a horse who looks good in the indoor and then you could jog them on the gravel or in the cement surface in the barns, and all of a sudden they look lame, but they don't really feel lame when you're riding them in a softer footing. Now on the opposite end of things, a horse can, like I said in that example situation, look pretty good to jog in a straightaway in the barn aisle, and then we could bring them out into the softer footing in the arena and they don't look so great. And in those cases, we're often looking to see if there might be a soft tissue issue. So when a horse is stepping into a softer surface, their tendons and their ligaments, those soft tissues have to extend, and that's when you might see those lameness issues come up. On the other end of things, if you have a hard surface, then you might have more concussions, so those bony issues are going to be highlighted. So we have two horses who are going to help demonstrate this today. We have Unnamed, our Magic Cat 2017 with Allie here, and then we have Burnside, who's currently up online as a rehab horse, and he has a known soft tissue injury. So we're going to use Julie and Burnside here to demonstrate first off, and we're going to use the outside surfaces. So if you're talking about foot issues or looking at lamenesses, you should always have a pair of hoof testers on hand so that you can make sure that maybe that's just the issue or a brewing abscess. But otherwise, let's take a look at Burnside doing a straightaway jog on a hard surface first. Now, depending on how familiar you are with looking at lamenesses, we see a ton all the time. So I'd say there is a subtle lameness at a jog here. His leg movement, so the way that he's stepping up underneath himself, is not bad at all. So on the AAEP, so the American Association for Equine Practitioners, guide to this, 0 being nothing at all, through 5, he has to take it a snack break. So the scale of distinguishing different levels of and grades of lameness, I would say maybe a 1 out of 5. So that's maybe intermittent or not very noticeable lameness. And you can also distinguish that based on whether or not it's observable at the walk. So a horse who if their lameness is not distinguishable at a walk, then we usually are saying that they're very low on that scale. So if they look pretty solid at the walk, you're probably a very subtle lameness. As it becomes more obvious, or in those situations where it's not noticeable at a walk, but then it is at the trot, then you sort of go up in those grade levels. So we can go into that at a later time. Let's look at a Burnside now jog on a soft surface. So very subtle on a harder surface. Now I would say, again, this is all sort of scale of subtleties because we know what's going on. He's already in a rehab program, but he's slightly more lame in the softer surface, and he has a soft tissue injury. So that might help us to distinguish, say we didn't know what was going on with him, if it was exacerbated. And the grass is still relatively hard. So if we take him into a soft surface, really soft footing, and then all of a sudden he's looking more lame, or if he's on a circle and we're noticing, that seems a little lamer, then of course that information is going to be really helpful, even if just to inform your vet. So we're not vets here, but any data, any of that sort of information that you can give to your vet to feed into the history and what's going on with the horse is really going to help you to detect those lamenesses as soon as possible, which is really important. It might make the difference between a relatively short rehab and a very long one. You really want to be able to identify issues quickly and efficiently so that you can get them on the path to recovery. So Allie Ann, named our Magic Cat 2017, you're up at bat. So Cat has a little bit more complicated history, but from what we know about her, she has a more bony related lameness. So you can see the little head bobbing, and we can always go more into how to distinguish lamenesses in a future video. So in the aisleway of the barn or out here on a harder surface, still again we're talking about subtleties, as we hope, because she's been on the mend and recovery. Let's see her in a softer surface now, and we'll see what you think. She's being a little bit naughty too. So overall, more subtle in a softer surface, harder to distinguish. It is difficult with a horse like this sometimes because she was, for example, in a 24/7 turnout where she was just hanging out on a grassy, softer surface, and you would see her move around in the paddock and you'd say, hey, she looks pretty good. You'd bring her in for a vet evaluation and she would all of a sudden look lamer than she did in the turnout. So an easy tool to help you distinguish lamenesses, again, just to collect that information, communicate it with your vet, and hopefully address issues. Just troubleshoot those issues so you can get them on the path to resolution. So harder surfaces will help you to identify, so hard versus soft, we'll say, will help you to distinguish where those issues might originate, where the harder surfaces might accentuate those bony issues. So that could be arthritis, that could be changes in the coffin bone, that could be lots of different things going on there. And then softer surfaces, so if a horse looks worse in those, they might help you to highlight when there is a soft tissue issue, and that might be suspensory desmitis, which we see in a lot of different cases on different scales. It could be a bowed tendon, it could be one of many different things, of course. So hopefully this information is helpful and will inform future decisions. We hope all of your horses are very sound and don't have to go through this, but of course they're living things, things will happen. So use that tool. You can gauge softness of surface and changes in surface for just about anywhere, and hopefully it will help you in the future. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Trainer Tip Tuesday. Check out our website, newvocations.org, and have a great Tuesday.